So today I will be doing a book review on The Fear by Natasha Preston. It's about a meme that's going around a small town. Everybody's reposting their biggest fear of how they would die. And once people start turning up dead, the main character, Izzy, is noticing that there's a pattern in the way that they reposted what their biggest fear is with the way that they died as well. So I'll be going through this book to just read some of my notes that I took, because I do take notes when I read. If you have not read this book, do not watch this video because I will be spoiling. So yeah. In chapter 1, there's a description about the main character and her best friend, Sydney. So the way that the main character, Izzy, or her full name is Isabella, is described. She has fair skin, rosy cheeks, wavy hair, hazel eyes, and the left has a little bit of green in it. I like to document how the characters look so I can get kind of a picture in my mind of how everything is going down, because as I read, it's like a movie in my head, and I can see the characters speaking, I can see what they're doing, and I can see their actions through the pages. And the high school that this story kind of happens in is called Rocks Bay High School. And her best friend, Sydney, she has dark skin, she's tall, she has full lips and short curls as the book describes it. They are juniors, or no, it's their senior year. And that's when all of this is going down. The meme that was starting to go around is this. I don't know if it's backwards for you guys. Repost your death fear. If death comes for you today, what would be the worst way to go? Hashtag the fear. And behind the caption, it's a picture of a very well-known landmark in their small town. So they obviously know that this is in their town and someone from their school created it. And as we go on to the next few pages, we meet some of the other characters. We have Kason and Justin. They're best friends. They're both in the popular group. And as the book describes them, every guy wants to be them and every girl wants to date them. Kason is described as a cocky asshole, and Justin is more of a sure of himself kind of guy, kind of like ambitious type. But they're both serial daters, which will be very, like, it'll be good to know that in the coming chapters because of how everything is going down. And then you have the quiet guy, Axel. They're saying that he either was held back or he chose to stay back. He's smart, has light blue eyes, loner leather jacket / bored expression. So he's kind of like, you know, the typical guy who just wants to be by himself. And that's mostly what I do in the first chapter, is I kind of just get the description of all the characters that I know that are going to be important. There are a few other characters, but they're not described, so I figured that they won't be as important as the ones that were. Okay, in chapter 3, we kind of get to the picture behind the caption. It's a diner called Puck's Diner. It's owned by Matthew Grayson, an ex-minor league pro hockey player. I did mention in the beginning of the video that this town is very snowy. It's up north. Everyone is either into hockey or it's surrounded by hockey. And they're basically described as Kason and Justin's hero because Kason and Justin are also on the hockey team for the high school, and they want to be kind of like him, go into the minor leagues or major leagues. Lenora is Matthew's wife. She's described as glamorous. She has shiny hair and she has new nails every 2 weeks. Everyone thought that she was going to leave once he stopped hockey, but they ended up staying together and creating this diner and moving back home. And at this diner, Izzy and Sydney are together. Her nickname is Sid. They're also meeting up with Izzy's cousins, Amaya. She goes to St. Mary's, an all-girls school, and she has black hair. She's very outgoing and very popular and stuff like that. They're all talking about going to a party tonight at another character's house called Mariella. She's not talked about too much, other than the fact that, you know, the party's at her house. I had to turn off my alarm. She's not talked about too much other than that the party's at her house, and this is where everything kind of goes down at the first place. So they're all kind of meeting up together at the party. Everyone's talking. Sydney and Amaya are both trying to, like, have a good time. The hockey guys are flirting with them. they're not too interested because they're a bunch of assholes, they say in the book. They are drinking, but the only one who is sober is Izzy, because she's going to be their designated driver. They all meet up together to go home at some point because they're just over it. That's when the first death is seen. When they're all leaving the party together in the car. It's a horrible snowstorm. You can't really see outside, but you can kind of see at least a little bit in front of you. So the way that the first person who is found is Debbie, one of the popular girls. I did not describe her because she did not seem to be too important, but I do notice that she does get more descriptions after her death. So she is noticed to be wearing a yellow dress. She's lying in the ground, face up, like she was pushed off of a building, and the back of her head is crushed. So that's horrible. They found her, and everyone's very suspicious of Izzy and all of that, because she's the one who found her. They're all looking at her crazy and everything. And then once the cops get there and they describe everything that they saw and how it happened, they notice that there's another body in the river across from where she was found. And it also happens to be Kaysen, one of the popular boys who I did describe at first. They're thinking it was a murder-suicide, or they both committed suicide, or like a suicide pact or whatever, but they're not too sure. Izzy is the one who is thinking that it's a murder, and she's trying to like come up with a plan in her head because she notices that Debbie would not jump off of a roof going backwards. She had to have been pushed. And Kaysen, if he was found in the river, it's very shallow end. So she does not think that he drowned on purpose. She thinks that they were both killed, but Sydney and Amaya are both putting into her head that one of them killed the other and then committed suicide. Because Debbie is very in love with Kaysen. She's very obsessed with everything that he does. She's very jealous and everything. Kaysen is not too interested in her. But yeah. And then going on to the end of chapter 6, it's where they describe the body, the second body that was found in the river. They don't know that it's Kaysen at first, but it is described that the body was found face down, so he was drowned. There's no way that he could have drowned in the shallow end of the river like that. And Izzy is thinking that it's Axel because she saw Axel leave right after Debbie. So she's over here thinking, oh, he either killed Debbie or he's the other person that's dead. And when she tells the cops this, they're very like suspicious of Axel and everything that he's doing. And the next day they do see all of them, Izzy, Sydney, and Amaya, they all hear that Axel is still alive. Izzy is the one who physically runs into Axel. And this is when she kind of starts to notice that their fears are how she died. For Debbie, her worst fear was falling to her death. And the way she died was she was pushed. So she technically did fall to her death backwards. Which was very insane to me when I first read this part, because I was like, so is this going to be like a common thing, like multiple people are going to die with their deaths and the people who reposted it are going to die? At first I thought it was kind of like a supernatural thing, you know, but obviously it's not, because somebody posted that story intentionally to get the attention of others to know how they would not want to die so they could kill them that way. In chapter 8, I noticed that Izzy doesn't know for sure how Kaysen wanted to die. She just overheard something. But before the post was deleted and everyone else's posts were deleted, she took screenshots of the post and she started saving them in a notebook. At some point, she switched the notebook to a pink notebook later on in the story. But she started saving them in a notebook, and she had all the screenshots on her phone of how everyone's worst fear was to die. And she looked back at Kaysen's and noticed that his fear was drowning, and the cause of his death was drowning. So the cops do eventually rule out that it was a murder-suicide or a suicide. It was a double homicide, essentially. And as she, gets all of this information Axel becomes irritated with her because he brought her into it, and he did have beef with Kaysen, kind of like he had some vendetta against him because Kaysen was with Debbie at the time, and Debbie cheated on Kaysen with Axel, so they were going at it with each other. I'm trying to skip because I didn't do too much on 9 and 10 because it was really mostly I saw 9 and 10 chapters as filler chapters. It's basically like the extra details. I don't want to say too much about that because I really do want people to read the story. So I'm just saying the things that I wrote down that stuck out to me, kind of. So, kind of going further into the book. I'm flipping. Kind of going in further. In chapter 15, we get to the first killer chapter. So it's basically, this chapter is in the POV of the killer, and we still don't know who the killer is. It's very anonymous. He's leaving little hints in each chapter. There are about 3-4 chapters of the killer's POV, which have kind of described who could be the top 3 suspects, which I will get into that later on. In the first killer POV, it's describing the base of where he is. He's in an open land with 3 barns. He chose the one farthest away from the 2 first ones. And the way I kind of decided that it was a barn was it was like big wooden doors. And I noticed that in the book, it says that they're in a fisher town with, there's like boats and all that and like little things. So I was like, this kind of seems like it's a country town, so it's gotta be a barn. So I was like, the base has a wood, large and door, and then they also do mention a barn, so I was like, yeah, might as well just be a barn. And he's deciding what his next kill will be. He's deciding what his 3rd kill will be, and he's going for strangulation. And then I'm trying to figure out who's fear strangulation. I'm going back and forth between the chapters that I've read and the current chapter that I'm on, trying to figure out if I was given any hints before then. I was not. So into my next one, Izzy is being watched. Starting in chapter 19, she noticed that she's being watched. She found fabric when she was with Tristan in the water, but going to the memorial service that the students of the high school were holding at the diner where the picture was originally taken. She went Tristan to the doctor to just have a talk with him to try to like kind of decode the situation, where they found a piece of fabric in the water. It was a black and red checkered flannel kind of pattern, and they did report that to the police and they took it from her. I don't know if she doesn't know if they took it kind of serious. But then after the memorial service at the diner, she did come back to her tire being slashed. It was only one tire. It wasn't like a needle, needle or something was stuck in the tire. It was like a clean slash, like a knife did it. And I noticed that Tristan was around. So at this point in the book, I didn't really notice anything too suspicious about Tristan because he's over here helping her and he was friends with her older sister in high school. So it seems like he was mostly there caring for her. And then after chapter 19, we do get to chapter 20, which is another killer POV. They're kind of describing more of what the killer has and what he's doing. We know that he now owns a SUV. He's planning a new kill tonight with the strangulation. The killer knows Izzy personally. We do know that. So I was kind of like shaving off people in the story who didn't really make too much sense. I definitely didn't think it was any of the police officers or the sheriffs that frequently came to her house that her dad knew. And then the killer was also at Mariella's party, so it could have definitely been someone there. So I'm thinking that it was either a student or someone who just, would fit into that kind of scene. And then he's also talking about how his 4th kill would go. He's thinking of taking Julia Stone and starving her to death because that is her worst fear. She goes to St. Mary with Izzy's cousin, Amaya. She has black skin, perfect hair, and painted nails, so he thinks that she is the perfect target for that 4th kill. So it's kind of like switching over from thinking, oh, they're just going to go kill everyone at that first school. They're going after people in the whole town. It doesn't matter if it's just like one school. He's going after everyone in the whole town. It's like he has something against everyone, which later we found out he does. So in chapter, I believe it's chapter 22, where we find that Jesse is missing. Jesse would be the third kill for strangulation. Izzy thinks that she's a suspect because she also had a thing for Kaysen and absolutely hated her. So we find out that she's missing since yesterday and no one found her in the library. And her worst fear is being stabbed. So they're thinking that instead of what the killer's going after, like strangulation. Did you hear that? I may have gotten Jesse and Debbie mixed up. Let me go back. Yes, I did get Jesse and Debbie mixed up. It was Jesse who's obsessed with Kaysen. So ignore that whole first part. It's Jesse who obsessed with Kaysen and who was absolutely in love with him. And, you know, she slept with Axel and everything. So going forward again past chapter 23, we get to another killer POV chapter in chapter 24. He confirmed that his third kill was Jesse. She was killed and dumped. They have not found the body yet. He's preparing to take hang on. He's preparing to take whatchamacallit. How do I say? He's preparing to take Julia. I had to look back because I was getting their names mixed up as I was reading. He's preparing to take Julia and take her and starve her to death. So he has built an entire room with a one-way mirror. He wants to be looking at her as she dies. And the way that he took her was he used a chloroformed cloth to take her undetected, knowing that she would be screaming, kicking, and crying and everything because he's known, like there's a known murder in their town. And then going on to chapter 25, they do see in the news that the body of missing 17-year-old Jessie Gardner was found in a field. She was stabbed to death and she was dumped. So he originally was going to go for something with strangulation. I guess he decided to change his mind and went with stabbing her instead, because that was her fear. And then at the end of that chapter as well, she spotted the killer's SUV and saw hands in the back, and that was most definitely Julia. He definitely took her, and she saw. She was not able to see inside the SUV and who was driving it because the front window's tint was so dark. But she did report it to the cops. They were suspicious of her because she seems to be finding every little thing out about this killer. The killer has a rule. We're going into chapter 27, which is another killer chapter. I think this would be the fourth one. And the killer has a rule to only take those who reposted the fear. So he's wanting to go after Izzy, but he can't because she didn't repost the fear. He knows that she's close to getting him, but he just cannot get her. I don't write too many notes going towards the end of the book because I'm really getting into my investigation in my head. So I don't really write too many things down that I think of in my head. And one thing that I notice in chapter 29 is that when Tristan comes over, he's also, this is when I start getting suspicious of Tristan. When Tristan comes over, he wants her to go to him first. He did not want to go to her. Izzy is her. I think this is going to be the last note that I share because I really do want to save the ending because it's just so insane. So anyways, Julia got free from the place where the killer had hid him. So this is why I'm suspicious of Tristan, because Tristan was not around when Julia was free. Like, Tristan was around when Julia was free, but he was not around when Julia was taken. And what I seem to notice is little things. Like, she didn't see the killer either. But when Tristan seems to found her, he seemed like very, like, suspicious that he would have seen her. Or that she would have seen him. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to share for this, because I really want people to read the ending by themselves and come up with their own conclusions, because it's basically like a puzzle. You have to put the little pieces together and try to kind of figure it out. And I love murder mystery books because it makes my brain want to, like, think, you know? But anyways, that's all I want to share. I will share the rest of another book that I'm reading. This is the second book that I'm going to start soon. So I will let you know once I finish this one. This one's a bit more of a hefty book. It's not a murder mystery. It's kind of like an assassination romance, kind of love story type thing. I've never really read a book like that, but I was like, let me try it. But yeah, we're going to be ending on chapter 29, leaving 20 other chapters, or 21 other chapters, because there's about 50 chapters in this book, I believe. Yeah, there's 50 chapters in this book. So, yeah, read the book.